welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and these are the staples that I will be putting in my Dimir commander decks. So that, of course, being the combination of blue and black. And interestingly enough, I don't currently have any Dimir decks, although I have made a lot in the past. I used to have a Silumgar deck. I also had a Rona deck. Ended up taking them both apart. The Rona deck mostly turned into just a Blink deck. The Silumgar deck concentrated a lot on destroying my opponent's creatures and didn't really do much other than that. Also had a Nimrus deck for a while, and that deck was just a very control heavy deck, which wasn't super fun to play or play against. So I took those all apart. I don't currently have a Dimir deck, but I do have a lot of great Dimir cards that I love playing in decks if I end up making another one at some point. And of course, a lot of suggestions for you guys to use as well. Just lots of great Dimir cards that could go in pretty much any black and blue deck. But of course, before I get to that, we always want to look at what does this color combination do well and what does it not do so well. So of course, you have access to blue, which means you probably have a lot of great card draw. You have counter spells, which blue of course does better than any other color in the format. We also have access to black, which also has a lot of great card draw, recursion effects, all the things that black does well. But what does it not do so well? And one of the reasons why I don't particularly love Dimir decks is it doesn't deal with artifacts and enchantments very well. I'm a huge removal guy. I love being able to deal with whatever my opponents are doing. Creatures, no problem for Dimir, but artifacts and enchantments can be a bit of an issue. So if you're making a Dimir deck, you absolutely have to put in the artifact and enchantment removal spells that are available to you. So for artifacts, Raven Form and Resculpt, I think are probably auto includes for me if I'm making a Dimir deck. Also get rid of creatures, but mostly I think you want to use these to get rid of those artifacts. And of course, enchantments, you gotta have Feed the Swarm, which is gonna, again, kill creatures, but probably want to save it for enchantments. And also they've come up with a few sort of alternative enchantment removal spells in black that are not super great, but they are options for you. So you want to make sure if you're putting a Dimir deck together to have some artifact and enchantment removal options, because there are a few. And that for me is the one big drawback to making a Dimir deck. Dimir as a color identity is pretty interesting. You know, what do you think of when you think of Dimir? If you look at some of the top commanders now, they're really all over the place. It never used to be that way. It used to be that Dimir was the mill color. There was pretty much every top commander in the blue and black color scheme was a milling strategy. That sort of is where almost every Dimir deck went. Now it's completely all over the place. We got Ninja Tribal, Zombie Tribal, Rogue Tribal. Those are sort of the big decks that are dominating Dimir colors right now. So the mill strategy has really fallen off, although Phoenix, God of Deception, still is a pretty popular commander in the format. But then you got like Arami of the Dead Tide, Toxtrol the Corrosive. You're really all over the place in Dimir with what you're doing. So the suggestions I'm going to make are really great staples that I think could go in almost any Dimir commander deck. So let's start off with Baleful Strix, one of the best creatures ever printed in my opinion. I just love value-y creatures like this. Enters the battlefield, gives you a card draw, and also has flying and death touch, which means it's going to be a fantastic blocker for you. I love the fact that it has that combination of abilities, so your opponents aren't going to really want to attack you with anything because they don't want to lose their creature. It also is an artifact creature, so will fit an artifact theme. The ETB means it works in a blink strategy. It's just a great value-y creature that you could put in any Dimir deck, I think. Similarly, Urtai Resurrected, recently from Dominaria United, 2 blue and a black, 3/2 with flash. When it enters the battlefield, you can either counter a spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. Its controller draws a card. There's an ability you want to be using in every single game. I mean, fantastic stuff printed on a creature. Or you could also destroy another target creature or planeswalker. Its controller draws a card. So you're giving your opponent that card draw. I suppose you could even use this on yourself if you're really desperate for the card draw, but having all of that stuff stapled on a creature that has flash is really, really handy. I think you could put this guy in any Dimir deck. Hostage Taker is another one for me that I could put in probably any Dimir deck that I'm making. 2 blue and a black. Human Pirate, 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, exile another target creature or artifact until Hostage Taker leaves the battlefield. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast it. So great way of dealing with creatures, but more importantly, it's a way to deal with artifacts. And again, Dimir Colors doesn't deal with artifacts super well, so this can be a great way to deal with a troublesome artifact your opponent has. There's certain cards that will really lock you out of the game that you want to be able to deal with. This is a way to deal with that. And then of course, you can use it yourself. Dire Undercurrents is a fantastic one that I used to see in the format quite a bit that I think could fit in pretty much any commander deck. 3 and 2 hybrid Dimir mana, so 5 mana total enchantment. Whenever a blue creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have target player draw a card. Now, of course, that's probably going to be you that's drawing the card. Whenever a black creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have target player discard a card, which probably again is going to be your opponent's. Just a great card, lots of great value here. Of course, if you have a creature that is both blue and black, you're going to get to do both of these, and that's likely going to be your commander. So just casting your commander and having it enter the battlefield is going to get you a card draw and make one of your opponents discard a card as well. Really great card that could go in just about any Dimir deck. Sire of Stagnation, again, another long-time commander staple in Dimir Colors. Just phenomenal value here that has the added upside for me of sort of punishing those landfall decks. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, that player exiles the top 2 cards of their library, which they're probably not going to love, and also you get to draw 2 cards. So lots of decks in the commander format that love to ramp. This guy does cost 6 for blue and a black, so it's not like you're going to get him out right away, but later in the game this can be fantastic value. I suppose if you're in that milling strategy, it could be the added bonus of exiling cards from your opponent's library, but mostly I think you're going to play this for the card draw. If your opponent plays a fetch land, they've now played a land. If they crack it, that's another land entering the battlefield. You just drew 4 cards off of that. Pretty great value there. Havengul Lich, another fantastic commander staple for a long time. And again, has sort of waned in popularity. I don't see this card much. I used to see it all the time. 3 blue and a black zombie wizard 4/4. Pay 1. You may cast target creature card in a graveyard this turn. When you cast that card this turn, Havengul Lich gains all activated abilities of that card until end of turn. Very weird card with the activated ability part. I don't know how often people use that. It can be nice to be able to gain the activated abilities. More so though, you're just stealing people's creatures with this. You can use it on yourself, obviously. That's what makes this card so fantastic. It's just going to sit there, and if you have a creature in your graveyard that you want to get back out of the graveyard, you can just pay 1 and cast it from the graveyard. Or if your opponent has some great creature in their graveyard that you want to steal, you can do that as well. I'm a big fan of Dimir Doppelganger, sort of in a similar vein, but doing it a different way. 1 blue and a black shapeshifter O2. Pay 1 blue and a black. Exile target creature card from a graveyard. Dimir Doppelganger becomes a copy of that card, except it has this ability. This is really a fantastic card, I think, that could go in any commander deck and is going to do tons of work for you. First of all, it's graveyard hate, right? This is instant speed graveyard hate, which is really good to have in a commander game. So your opponent goes to reanimate that big creature out of their graveyard. You pay 3 mana, exile it instead. So they're getting nothing for their trouble. And then on top of that, your Dimir Doppelganger is going to become a copy of it until you want to change it to something else. Unlike the Havengul Lich here, you're not going to get any ETB effects. So a Rex Age or an Eternal Witness aren't going to be great targets here. More, you're going to want those cards with those big splashy abilities. Maybe just a big creature you want to be getting for damage with. This can be a really handy card in a commander game, no doubt. I have touted Night Veil Predator on my channel a lot. I just love the combination of abilities here. Blue, black, vampire 3/3. Flying, death touch, and hexproof. That's it. Doesn't really look like much, but that combination of abilities is really good because again, I have that flying death touch creature just like with the Baleful Strix, so my opponent aren't going to want to attack me because they're probably going to lose their creature if they do so. But then on top of that, it's got hexproof, so my opponents can't just target it and get it out of the way if they want to get in for damage. This is just like a ghostly prison type of effect when it sits on the battlefield for you. Also though, if you want to be getting in for damage, it works that way as well. This doesn't necessarily fit specifically into any strategy, but again, it's a card that you could put in any Dimir deck and it's going to be really fantastic for you. I guarantee it. Notion Thief, again, another commander staple since forever. Of course, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it. 2 blue and a black human rogue 3/1 with flash. If an opponent would draw a card, except the first one they draw on each of their draw steps, instead that player skips that draw and you draw a card. This of course can be an absolutely punishing effect for your opponents. In fact, people have built their entire decks around this. The Opus Thief decks that are played in CEDH build around found this card. Hull Breacher was the one that sort of replaced it, because Hull Breacher, of course, has a similar effect. That, of course, is banned in the format. A lot of people are happy to see it banned. I thought it was a little confusing that everyone wanted Hull Breacher banned and nobody called for Notion Thief to get banned. I never see people call for this card to get banned, even though it does have pretty much the exact same effect of, if you cast that wheel effect, you're now making your opponents discard their whole hand and they don't get to draw anything. The fact that it has flash, of course, means you can really get some fantastic gotcha moments, but this is any draw effect, right? So even if your opponent has a Rhystic Study out, that is a draw that isn't the first one they draw on their draw steps. Obviously a fantastic card in a commander game. And just a little bit of nostalgia for me, I will throw out Mundugu. Very interesting card. 1 blue and a black human wizard 1/1. You just tap it to counter target spell unless its controller pays 1 and 1 life. Not a huge splashy effect, but this really is a card that you could put in any commander deck and it is going to do work for you. It just sits on the battlefield, and at any point your opponent taps out to cast something, you can just tap this guy and counter that spell. But worst case scenario, even if they have the 1 mana, they're still going to pay the 1 life. So this card's always going to be doing work for you, but also can be a bit of a scare tactic for you if your opponents want to tap out to cast that big splashy spell and you have your Mundugu in play. They're probably not going to want to do so. You can maybe play some politics here as well. I think it's a card that can be really fun in a commander game and could pretty much fit in any deck, and it will do some work for you. So there is actually a lot of just straight up Dimir cards, right? Blue and black cards that for me could pretty much go in any Dimir deck. I mentioned 10 of them here, and they're all going to be great regardless of whatever you're doing in your deck. I think you could put pretty much any of those cards I mentioned in any Dimir deck, and they're going to be fantastic in a commander game. So that is my list of staples that I'm putting in my Dimir commander decks if I'm making one. And if you are thinking of purchasing any of these cards, I do have a TCG player link. It is in the description below. Feel free to give it a click. It helps support the channel. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.